Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Community Platform. I'm afraid we're still under lockdown. Corona seems to have locked the world down, not just our own country or our own region. Today we're looking at the closure of mosques. What does that mean for us, the Muslim community members? And what does it mean for the mosques? Today we are also going to have Muhammad Jahangir, who will be with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Muhammad Jahangir. He has been our guest before, but he's Chief Executive of Communica Consultancy. He works extensively consulting with advising masajids and charities around the country. He also acts as a geopolitical expert and long-term community activist, writer, and thinker. And I like the word thinker because thinking is something that we tend not to do as much as I think we should do. So there's some very difficult questions to be asked. Who is missing what? Are the mosques missing, as I said, the congregation, but why? Are the communities missing going to the mosques? Why? We are literally a day away from Ramadan. I didn't think that it will be in my lifetime that there will be no Tarawih in our mosques. Mosques are locked up, and that's heartbreaking because we have a mindset. We seem to think that somehow religion is only within that space. Let's talk to Muhammad Jahangir. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Jahangir bhai, you are live on UCTV and आपको मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस तो करवा दिया और जितनी आपकी बुराइयां हो सकती थी वो तो मैंने कर दी.
शुक्रिया.
You're more than welcome, Jahangir bhai. अच्छा ये बताएं, you're okay? Is the family okay?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah. So far we haven't been affected with Allah's blessing.
Okay, it's good to have you here with us. Jahangir bhai, of course, the topic is very much, and you, of course, do such a lot of work with masajids, not only just advising them, but of course, you've been doing a lot of charity and with reference to the work that you do for charity, not for charities, but advising about the charities around the country. It's a very difficult question, isn't it? Who's missing the mosque? Why are we missing the mosque, and why are the mosque missing the congregation? Is that fact or is that a mindset?
Well, I think emotionally, the shock of mosques closing initially affected everybody. But most mosques, there are some exceptional mosques, but most mosques basically do congregational prayers, the Friday prayer, and a madrasa. That's the main service. Very little outside of that. Tarawih in Ramadan, Eid prayers, a few lectures here and there. And most people, sadly, the congregation prayer usually has one or two lines, unless you're in one of the bigger mosques in a densely populated area. But and those one or two lines of regular congregational prayers are usually the elderly. Mm-hmm. So most people's interaction with the mosque is either on a Jummah, where for an hour, where they listen to a 20-minute khutbah and say the prayer, and sometimes even the khutbah is not understood by most of those who attend because it's not in a language they don't understand. Or the madrasa, where we send most of our kids. Now, if I'm being totally honest, the only people who said to me, or I've come across, who said they've missed the mosque are parents whose children can no longer go to madrasa, and for some parents it was a way of getting rid of their kids for a couple of hours so they could have some peace, and that's what some of the parents have actually said.
Are you,
So I think,
Jahangir Bhai, are you saying to me that the mosque act as babysitters for some parents?
well, I think some parents do treat the mosques like that, and some of the imams actually complain that the parents don't take enough responsibility, and if truth be told, most of the mosques do madrasa as and impart an important function, which is the learning of the Quran by in Arabic, but very little knowledge comes out of the mosque. Very little learning has come out of the mosques, and so in a sense, the mosques had become a center of ritual practice and ritual learning, and very inward looking rather than outward looking. Very few services are outside, very little interaction outside, and I might provocatively say that our masjids had basically imprisoned Islam within the mosques and within rituals, and Islam was not really being promoted outside of the mosques from those who run the mosques. So in a way, coronavirus may well have set Islam free from the mosques.
Now, that's a very interesting concept, isn't it? That and it reminds me of how the churches. I mean, I'm looking at it from how the priests became the owners of Christianity historically, and the churches became the authority on Christianity. Are you saying that we might have a mindset that we are moving in that direction?
Well, I think we probably, as I say, there are exceptional mosques, but probably that's where we've been heading for a long time, certainly since the period of colonization, where, Islam and the mosques became very inward-looking, focused on a ritual observance, which of course is important as well, but it became far from what the masjids used to be historically, which was great centers of learning and knowledge and administration and adjudication, and not just Islamic teaching, but there were libraries next door, and we had great scholars, and people used to not just teach Islamic works, but they used to teach the great subjects of the day, the ideas of the day, interrogate them. I think we moved away from that a long time ago, and we were steadily moving towards a very, if you like, Christianized version of a place of worship. And I think, for most people, the only time you really came into contact with the mosque, as I say, was on a Friday. And there was very little interaction outside that. So maybe, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of reminding us. I mean, if you look at it, around the world, the mosques are all closed, exception possibly Pakistan and a few other places. But the mosques have been closed, and maybe in that, we say that disasters and this things like this are meant as a blessing from Allah, to be treated as a blessing. And maybe what we're realizing is that maybe this is a cause for us to reflect and think. And I think a lot of people are now trying to get learning and teaching online from the mosques. So maybe this was a way for us to check the direction we were going, and to rethink where the masjids were going.
Do you think that people actually will be reflecting? Do you think there will be a mindset? Because as you said, that Corona may actually set us free, and that we have imprisoned Islam within buildings, in the within four walls, so to speak. Do you think that the mindset could change, and what do we need for that mindset to be changed?
Well, I think there are positive signs. I see a lot of networks and a lot of mosques now doing Friday reminders and doing lectures online and communicating to people. They've got programs for Ramadan that they're trying to set up online. So in a strange way, whereas all these things were not reaching people's homes, they are now trying to beam directly into people's homes. So this is quite, they're being brought up to speed very quickly. A lot of mosques were never online, and now they're thinking about that. They're on social media now, planning their activities. We've had some mosques that, under the regulations, you're allowed to provide essential services in a mosque for the benefit of the wider community, such as food banks. And we've had mosques doing that. So things that they never normally did, focused on the needs of communities, they've now started to do. So I think that's a positive direction. I mean, I was even, people are even listening to, most of our mosques are ethnic specific, and also tend to be, a place where mainly males go. And, I've now heard people saying, I listen to, and they're specific to sects, sorry. So now you can listen to different people. You can listen to people from different sects. I had, my own nephew said to me, I don't normally listen to this particular, a particular sect, but I listen to their Friday reminder, and I really enjoyed it. My kids really learned something, and then they started asking me questions. What does this word mean? What does that mean? And it was a great learning experience. So I think, in a strange way, this is causing us to do all kinds of things, and imams who've never delivered a lecture online or a Friday reminder online are now doing so. Never really gone outside their mosques to teach. So I think we're going to, hopefully, at the end of this process, certainly be up to date technologically very quickly. The learning might follow, but of course, even the fundraising is difficult for the mosques at the moment, but they're bringing that online as well. Many of them, despite all the new technology, just relied on the Friday collection, never did any online donating or fundraising. So there is a ray of hope, but we don't know if we're going to go back to the old practices after it's all over.
No, it's a very interesting point that you've touched. that the people are missing that connection, that that going to the masajids. We won't be having Taraweeh this the first time, certainly in my lifetime, that there will be no Taraweeh. So that's something that we'll be missing. But I want you to talk about what is it that the mosque will be missing. The mosque will be missing its congregation. With the congregation comes funding. Will the mosque miss a lot of funding for its upkeep? How will
Yes,
the mosque will keep? How will the mosque actually upkeep the building?
well, I think a lot of them are missing the Friday collections, which keep them going, and that's a serious issue for a lot of them. A lot of the bigger ones will not miss that funding because, they have reserves or they have online donations set up. But a lot of the smaller ones with smaller congregations, the Friday collection really keeps them going. So that's going to be desperately missed, and staff and imams may be laid off. But I think it is a hard time. Hopefully, it won't last long. But I'm pretty sure the Muslim community is generous enough to make up that funding. But in terms of community, I guess the whole community spirit about going to the mosque will be missed, especially during Ramadan. The whole activities around Ramadan, the iftar in the mosque, these will definitely be missed. And of course, charities usually every evening in Ramadan during Taraweeh prayers, which can be said at home. There used to be charity appeals, so the charities themselves are going to have no events and are going to have appeals online instead, or on TV. So I think that whole spirit will be missed, but equally, it's not mandatory to pray Taraweeh in the masjids. Our Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he only prayed a few times Taraweeh in congregation in the mosque during his life. So most of the time he prayed at home. So this is a chance really for us to reconnect at home and establish a spiritual atmosphere in the house. And of course, for the first 13 years of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, there was no masjid.
Yes.
It was only in Medina that it was established, and many of us who came to this country, I remember when my parents came, and the small town that we were brought up in, there was no masjid. Our house, my mother was a teacher, and our house was the masjid. The local children would come, 15, 16 of them, and they would all come to the home every evening, and she would teach them the Quran and the basics, and sometimes she would even, in nice weather, lead them onto the park across the road and teach them in the park. So, just because the masjids are closed temporarily, it doesn't mean that Islam has no home. Islam, according to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the whole world is a masjid, and your home can certainly be a masjid. So it's important that we use this opportunity really to learn more and reflect and develop our homes and our families in that way.
You earlier mentioned that the Corona has set us free. It's almost as if there's a mindset which is maybe changing how we perceive our masajids and how our masjid is going to perceive its congregation. Do you think that could actually happen? But I don't want you to answer that question now because we are moving towards a break. So we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we're going to ask we've been asking some very difficult questions. I'm very grateful to you, Jahangir Bhai. So let's take a break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Community Platform. Just before short break, of course, we were talking to Jahangir Bhai, Muhammad Jahangir, who's the Chief Executive of Communica Consultancy and works extensively in consulting work with advising masajids and charities around the country. He also acts as a geopolitical expert and long-time community activist, writer and thinker. Jahangir Bhai, just before we went on a break, we've been talking about how maybe Islam became prison within the mosques, as sometimes we had seen in the past where Christianity was somehow seems to be living within the churches. And Corona might have actually set us free. I just want to talk to you about the gender situation. You know, there are many, many mosques where women have never been welcomed. And here today, mosque is going into the houses, into the homes. It must be absolutely liberating. I mean, for women to say, well, no, gender equality at last.
Well, I say this, coronavirus has brought equality to the mosque because neither men nor women can go into them at the moment. So, that's an interesting idea, but most women in some mosques they would go. A few mosques would allow women for Jummah, but most women would not go to the mosque, and therefore they're not likely to be missing them that much, to be honest. So it would be a good experience that the imams that they couldn't hear their messages and khutbahs on a Friday, they are now listening to their reminders and their lectures online, their local imams from their local mosques. So, and getting that education for their children also online as well. So I think that's a new experience really for a lot of the sisters.
Absolutely.
And it's bringing them into contact with their mosques. So that has to be a good thing, and maybe that will force people to rethink what they're doing in the masjids and how the women are involved and what kind of services and that can be provided for the sisters.
It's an opportunity, I think, for a lot of sisters to be providing. I mean, at the moment, many mosques are doing distance learning. So I think that, you're absolutely right. I have a question here, Muhammad Bhai, if I can just read it to you. It's from a gentleman called Mizan Ahmed Bhai. He said, the decision to reopen the masajids in Pakistan, is that wise? and leading question: who's advising Imran Khan and the Ulama Karam to take such a big gamble? What do you say?
Well, it's certainly not wise. I think obviously Pakistan is way behind in terms of the spread of the virus, so the figures are not big yet. But we know what happens when people continue to gather in large places, even with the precautions that they're taking. So I think this is a puzzling decision because almost all of the Muslim countries have not gone down that road. So, and it would be tragic if I know a lot of doctors are worried in Pakistan, and they're appealing to the government to reverse that decision, because in Karachi and places like that, the hospitals are now starting to get busy, and they're worried about the consequences. So I think obviously the religious institutions and the religious scholars have become, in a way, an establishment in Pakistan, and they are protecting their interests. And of course, they've said they're worried about the financial situation, but at the end of the day, that's not a reason to put human lives at risk. Islam doesn't say, that ritual trumps harm to life. So I don't know what's going on there, but it will certainly be catastrophic if the numbers start increasing, and they may have to review their decision. But yes, it's a really puzzling one, but not surprising given that the religious groups there have become an establishment and have held the country in a way to ransom time and time again, and yet they've never really gone out of their way to change the situation of mass poverty, illiteracy in Pakistan. Rather, they're more intent on preserving their interests.
It's a very interesting question, isn't it? That in Pakistan, the Prime Minister has not been able to say, no, you may not go against the decision of the government or the guidelines. It's very strange. Are we saying that the civil government in Pakistan is not able to stand the challenge, put up by the religious leadership? Is there a conflict there?
I think there is. I mean, if you remember during General Zia's time, he levied zakat to be taken directly from people's bank accounts, and he introduced some reforms, and he was resisted as well, and we all know what happened to him. But I guess the worry is that the religious groups will pose a threat to life for Imran Khan, and he probably needs their support to ensure that the reforms that he's planning are successful, and to his own political career maybe. So there's no doubt that the religious groups do hold some power. They're an interest group with some power, some clout in that country, and they have to be managed like everybody else. But of course, this is what happens. It reminds me of the time of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, when the Jewish authorities, some of the Jewish authorities, had become so powerful and self-interested that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent a messenger to bring back the true method and message of the deen, and to correct people. So maybe, this is a message for all of us, that religion itself can become an establishment. It can become an interest group, and that is not necessarily the same as Islam. and the deen.
It's quite a concern, isn't it? That the I'm not sure. Is it just the Sindh province that is saying that they will not close down the masajid during Ramadan, or is it all over Pakistan? I'm not too sure about this at
It
all.
seems to be centered around Karachi in particular.
Right.
But I think obviously if one section of society or one faction within Islam says we're keeping our mosques open, you can't then tell the others to close theirs. So others will follow. So it will obviously affect the whole country. So you've got to have a consistent policy, but I guess it's for different scholars, to take the lead and decide whether they're going to put their own interests and their own financial needs above the risk of harm to life.
It's it's distressing to think that people could be exposed to the virus because of certain actions. But again, we don't know. We can only pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. Jahangir Bhai, I'm very grateful to you for the time that you've given us. You certainly posed some very challenging questions. I've noted down two of your quotes that we imprisoned Islam in mosques and masajids, and maybe the corona has set us free. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the corona does set us free. And I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. So I think just on a final note, we need to remember that Islam is not a message to be confined to the mosque. It's a deen for humanity, and we were instructed to convey that message to humanity. It's not even just for Muslims, it's for humanity. And maybe Corona has given us a chance to spread that message to humanity itself.
Thank you so much. Profound words. Jazakallah khair. Jahangir Bhai, thank you. And we're very grateful for Jahangir Bhai to actually given us that time. I think it's time to reflect. What are our masajids for? And what do they do for us? And what do we do for our masajids? Do we imprison Islam within buildings? Is that the road that we should be taking? A lot of difficult questions. I like to take this opportunity to wish everyone Ramadan Mubarak. Please remember me and the Ummah at large in your duas. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.